Alright, that's it. Back to Japanese. There we go. Alright everyone, so what is wrong with the English voices in Genshin Impact? And this is not a video to sort of hate on the voice actors or anything. It's not about the voice actors themselves. I think the crew that's responsible for the pacing, responsible for telling the voice actors what the appropriate pitch level and tone is and all these sorts of things, those people really haven't done, in my opinion, a very good job with the game so far. And I think nothing will explains it better than if we actually look at a couple of examples. And I've been playing the game in English to sort of get like a good sense of how this works and why the English is just generally not as good. And I think I can sort of explain it with a simple example. So I want to go back to the version 2.5 trailer with the Raiden Shogun, and I want us to review the English and the Japanese versions, and hopefully you guys will sort of like see the differences. You'll sort of understand what I mean by pacing issues being problematic. So for instance, in this very specific clip, it's not the voice or the tone at which it's being pitched, it's when she says her voice lines, and I think this is something that is probably, from a production point of view, very unpolished compared to something like the Japanese version. So I'm just going to let this quickly play out and then I'll point out all the problems. It's just a short clip from the 2.5 trailer.
Inferior! Perish! Ruin follows my blade! Witness the final calamity!
Alright, so you might be like, well, there was no problems there, it sounded pretty good, you know, it sounded pretty awesome, but I think if you start looking at the cinematics and when the beat drops are happening during, like as the music in the background's playing, you'll start to notice that it's completely out of sync with her voice lines. So let's look at the first one.
Inferior!
So it's like right here in the beginning she's like inferior and then like the slash comes. It's like the voice line is delivered way too early in my opinion in this case.
Perish!
This one I think is the worst one. It's like perish. It's like inferior, perish. But listen to the music in the background. Listen very carefully to the beat drop.
Inferior! Perish!
Now hopefully you guys picked it up. It's like right at this moment it's like tum. So she's like perish and then it's like perish. Which is, it just doesn't fit as well. And when we play the Japanese version, you'll hear the difference. You'll hear how that version is actually way in sync with the background music and of course the footage. But it's just so egregious right here. It's again, the voice line delivery is way too early. Because you've got two effects happening right here. You've got the beat drop and then you've got the slash going. So it's almost like voice line, beat drop, slash. It's just like the voice line should have been on the beat drop and that would then give you more of a sort of like, or like a better emphasis on the slash hitting the ground. It's like perish, boom. You know, it's not like perish, boom. It's if it makes sense. This one's actually pretty okay. I've got very few complaints about this one, and in the final one is also just terrible.
Witness the final calamity!
You see, she's not even finished with her voice line, but the screen's already dark. And it's almost like she's like, witness the final calamity. You know, it's like, it's almost too stretched out when you listen to it. So I think it's just, yeah, the pacing is just all over. And this is just like a very short clip. And I can understand why when you do play like the Genshin Impact story quest and so on, it can feel almost like a bit of a slog to go through. And that's because things aren't really tightly, our production values isn't quite as good as the Japanese. So let's play the Japanese, and keeping in mind what I've sort of said about the English version, see if you can notice the differences. I'm just going to put up the volume. So right off the bat, we've got a lot of things that are happening, and that's sort of done right. So right here in the beginning, she's like, "Gudon desu," in other words, foolish. It's like good on this, then it's like when she cuts like straight through it. It's like foolish, and then immediately you've got the cut. It's just the pacing is just on par, and then the next one here is exactly on the beat drop. So she's gonna say danzit. So in other words, it's like sever. Listen to it. Boom. So it's exactly what it is. It's like beat drop. It's like danzit, bam. That's what I want. I don't want perish, bam, then the slice on the ground. It's I want it I want it to be in sync. It's like sever and then smash. That's way better pacing if you listen to it. Anato kirisakimashu, I'll tear you apart. And then the voice line's finished, and then you can see that animation playing. Absolutely beautiful. And then here on the final one, notice that here's, at this point, the English voice actress would be like, witness the final, but here it's all silent. It says like, Ego Nixena, which return to eternity. And what you've noticed is she said her voice line. It's almost like Ego Nixe, the set right at the end is just before like the curtain like draws black here, which it just shows you that the timing of the voice lines is just so much better, because it creates a better suspense right here at the end. So think about it. It's like, okay, so what is she doing? There's a giant hand. And then now she's like, return to eternity, and she's like, bam. Like the voice line delivery is just way better synced with what I'm seeing and the music. And it just fits overall better than having now to still hear the final calamity and then the screen's already black. It's like, well, I haven't been killed, like, you know, as the user seeing this. It's just like I'm still hearing the final calamity even though I'm supposed to be dead. It just doesn't fit as well. But here in the Japanese version, it's just like you see it and it's like Ego Nixe, and it's like bam, gone. It just thematically and with regards to what it means, it just does it. So that's why I think generally like the English voices are a bit inferior to the Japanese. And if we look in game right here, you guys will see that there's a couple of problems as well. So for instance, with Kokomi in Japanese, her voice matches almost like the gravitas or the heaviness of her attacks much better than the English voice does. It's the same for Yaemiko, and let's just listen carefully right here. You can hear her attacks are like doof, doof, doof. And whenever Kokomi does her voice lines, go on, Shio. So don't worry. It's just like you can hear. It's just I don't know. For me, it just fits a lot better. It gives like a more of a mature voice to Kokomi, because she's supposed to be a young adult. So for instance, I would probably guess like 20, between like 23 to 25-ish. That's sort of where I would put her at. And just having a bit of a more mature voice really appeals to me. It's the same with Yaemiko. She's supposed to be menacing. She's the sly, clever fox, and you want that low pitch, and it's just so heavenly when you listen to it in Japanese. I mean, it just sounds better. Why are you thinking, yeah, something wrong with that tile? But you guys can hear, there's just like a gravity towards what she does, and even her totems hitting like enemies. I don't think we've got anything nearby, but like when they hit the enemies, like doof, doof. It's just, I don't know. I just like it way, way more. I think the English version is just too high-pitched sometimes as well. And it just then sort of takes away from the whole experience. Allow me! But it's like, allow me, and then you've got this like heavy hitting burst and or jellyfish in the background. It doesn't really work for me. Cute, yeah. It just, yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't work. It almost sounds like Kokomi is like, I don't know, 16 years old, and it's again no shade to the voice actors. They're just following the directions. In fact, I know that the English voice actress for Kokomi has actually got a naturally, like, her natural voice is a lot deeper than what is portrayed, which is kind of like problematic for me, because it's like, why not just use her natural voice? Because that would sound so much sexier with Kokomi than the higher pitched one. And yeah, that's just my problem. And I think also something like Klee, it's not the voice actress that's problematic, it's how they sort of pitched and wrote it, which just sort of, I don't know, you can see this, she's like a little ball of cuteness, and then you've got this like teenagey voice, which, yeah, this like teenagey voice that just sort of fits with the childlike character. It just doesn't work at all. So yeah, that has just been my thoughts, and this is just again my opinion on it. But I think the Japanese is way easier, or way easier to listen to, and I also feel like the Japanese language itself is just, when you read the Japanese language, it's just way better than something like, you know, the end of Honoraic Euphemia. It's just like, what? You know, I've got a master's degree in freaking actuarial science, and I've never heard this word. And I've seen lots of corporate and heavily filled like English jargon words, but now I need like a PhD in English to decipher all of the sort of big words they use in English. And then when I go into Japanese, it's just way simpler. It's just like, oh, duh. It's like in English, it's like we talk about a gnosis. And it's like, what? And in Japanese, it's like kami no kokoro. In other words, a god's heart. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's just way simpler. It just gets the point a lot better. But yeah, that's just... Exactly, you can see that's way more childlike, way more fun, and of course, Klee in the Japanese version never shuts up. I forgot about that, but I mean, it is absolutely adorable. Alright guys, if you've been sticking around until now, thanks for watching, and yeah, again, just my opinion. Tell me what you think. Cheers.